dust them off, put them back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still.
Blue HQ Media is live. We're back from the Stack Pickle in Southport. I'm sitting with the manager, Mike.
What's up, Johnny?
How you doing, brother?
Good, bud.
And we're going straight to Dalton.
What's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Howdy.
Joined by a pretty good crew tonight. We have Derek, Mark, and Troy. This is what I'm going to call you.
Tony
also.
Vittorio.
No, it's Tony, but I'm going to call him Troy. So.
Troy.
Just
guys
so you
doing?
know who does the research around here and who doesn't.
I know his name. I was just kidding because I was calling him Troy before the show.
Right.
Sure.
So let's kick it right to Mike. Mike, what's new with the Stack Pickle?
Well, I can't believe it already, but we're gearing up for March Madness. Reaching out to different corporate and business owners. A lot of people come in here and reserve tables, reserve the restaurant to watch their favorite March Madness. So gearing up for that, St. Patrick's Day, and already cleaning off the patio, getting ready for patio weather. So Tuesday night tonight, $2 pints, $7 taco platters. Get down to Stack Pickle in Southport.
I love the patio. It's great out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Party every night in the summertime.
Nice.
And the taco platters, if you haven't had them, check them out. I'm a
They're
big
good,
taco
huh?
fan. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can't get past the pickles.
I haven't really had bad food here. I just recently tried the flatbread. Blew my mind. You
Wow.
never think a sports bar has good flatbread pizza, but it was great.
Yeah.
Never frozen, make it to order, season it to order. It's all it is. We also got PBR Plaps Blue Ribbon on special tonight, too.
Woohoo!
It's old school.
Make
Peeps.
Johnny happy.
Huh?
It's a
Old school.
hashtag
Peeps.
sponsor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come here to get a burger with mac and cheese on it. Oh, two of the greatest things on earth put together, and it absolutely works.
Well, on that note, let's talk some sports here. Mark, you want to introduce Tony here? Not
I'm
Troy.
going
Tony.
to.
I promise I'll only do it once.
One of our guests tonight are really our only guest tonight, but we're sure glad to have him. Tony Vittorio, the former baseball coach at the University of Dayton for 18 years. Before that, he was at Indiana,
Go Hoosiers.
Kentucky, Lincoln Trail, Fort Wayne, IUPUFW, whatever it is.
Put a vowel in that.
Tony told me one time he was going to play a game against IUPUI Fort Wayne and IUPUR, and they were going to have optometry night because all the letters, and they could read them.
The
So
pregame meal was alphabet soup.
there you go.
I don't
There
think it's
you go.
IPFW anymore, is it?
No,
Didn't
it's
they
Fort
change-
Wayne
Fort Wayne.
University.
Yeah.
University.
So we're glad to have him here tonight. We're going to talk a little NCAA baseball along with some other things. And Tony, thanks for coming out tonight.
It's awesome. Really appreciate the offer and your friendship, Peeps, through the years and meeting these guys. Looking forward to this hour.
It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you on, Tony. Tell us a little bit about the Atlantic 10 Conference. I think a lot of people are starting to become more familiar with Dayton basketball because of Archie Miller having been there, and now, of course, he's at Indiana. But tell us a little more about Dayton baseball and how it's fared over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so first of all, the Atlantic 10 Conference is Midwest to East Coast to a Southern Conference. It goes from St. Louis, Missouri to University of Massachusetts down to Richmond, Virginia. So it's a well-traveled conference. And the basketball team gets to hop on the planes, and the baseball team gets to hop on the buses. So a lot of 10-hour bus trips and those type of things. But, yeah, 18 years at the University of Dayton, we were able to build, I think, a very competitive program, and it turned into a championship-level program as we were able to win the Atlantic 10 Conference in 2009, 2012, and struggled a little bit maintaining championship-level baseball the last few years. And after my 18th year, it's time to hang them up and do some other things.
Well, and winning the Atlantic 10 is no small feat by any stretch of the imagination. You've got some quality athletic programs in a variety of sports there with schools like VCU and Rhode Island, and University of Richmond actually competes pretty well in football. at the lower division level.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, but last year, Davidson University, who's in our conference, went to Super Regional in baseball and was beat by Texas A&M to go to the World Series. And the year before that, VCU was in the Super Regional too. So I think the last 6-7 years, there's been a different champion, conference tournament champion every year. So I think it's a very well-balanced conference, and there's a lot of parity from a baseball standpoint. Anybody can win it any year.
I was looking up and down your roster before the show started, and I noticed that you have about a dozen or so players from the state of Indiana, including a couple from my home county, Floyd County. How has the state been as a recruiting ground for you over the course of your career?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up on the south side of Indianapolis, went to Southport High School, and coached at Indiana University as an assistant right out of college, played at Hanover College, and so obviously there's a lot of Midwest ties there, and especially Indiana ties, and there's a lot of great high school baseball coaches out there that I've developed a relationship and trust, which is huge in the recruiting business. So there's always been a lot of Indiana boys on the Dayton Flyer roster.
One in particular, Brandon Smith, who's one of those kids I mentioned from Floyd County. I was looking over the numbers, and he's got some power to him, doesn't he?
He does. He's a good old Southern Indiana boy, right from the farm. There's no doubt about it. He's a first baseman and a middle lineup hitter that hit a lot of home runs in his redshirt freshman year. Last year, dealt with an injury the year before, an arm injury, and has a really live arm, but had some surgery. And talking to the new coach at the University of Dayton, Coach King, looks like his arm's healthy and back, so he might be hitting 4-hole and closing on the mound for him too.
Do you think if he ends up pursuing a pro career that he would be the sort who would do both pitching and hitting, or do you think he's just going to go one or the other?
Yeah, I would say that with Brandon it would be one or the other, and I don't know which way that would lean right now. Like I said, he has some great power from an offensive standpoint, but he's probably 91, 92 off the mound too as well, so we'll see what happens there.
One thing I want to ask you about is the logo on your chest there, and we've obviously talked about that on the show before, but can you give everybody kind of a refresher on what the Friends of Jaclyn Foundation is? Yeah,
so after I hung them up last year, I knew what I was going to do. Was going to go to work for the Friends of Jaclyn. We adopted a kid at the University of Dayton through our baseball program. His name was Cameron Neal when he was 11 years old. He passed away at 15 years old, but the relationship came as such that me and our catcher, Kyrus Dugan, did the eulogy at his funeral, and that's the type of relationship it was. So developed just a good relationship with Jaclyn's dad, Dennis Murphy, and it just was something that was tugging at my heart a little bit through the experience. Obviously, we team cancer patient kids up with college and high school teams across the country, and to enhance the quality of life for that child while that child's still on earth. And it's just it's a special foundation and something dear to my heart, and obviously it's becoming something dear to a lot of people's heart. And really appreciate Coach Pieps is what I'm going to call him, because that's who he is to me. He's a mentor of mine and always has been, next to my dad. He's the next guy in my life that's meant a lot to me, but he's helped out in the Indianapolis area. He's not glad, probably. We're glad he retired from teaching, so he has time to do it a little bit.
I do got to say, looking over some of the stories of kids who have hooked up with your organization, it's just so amazing to me that sports, it seems like just something you root for to most fans, but to think of it as this powerful emotional force that can actually, help improve someone's quality of life while they're going through such a hard time. I mean, I struggle for the words.
Yeah, so, I'm a high academic guy, right? players need to go to class and make good grades and those type of things. But it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention that I've learned probably more in the locker room and on the playing fields about life than you learn in any classroom that you sit in. I'm talking about, dream, drive, desire, determination, discipline, how to handle competition, and how to give back to those less fortunate. I was always a guy that one of my missions was learn to lead and lead to serve, and to teach your players that same thing. So, it's just the locker room experience and the on-field experiences. There's just something about it that I feel teaches you a lot about life.
Well, and it definitely changes your perspective on not just the sport itself, but on a lot of things when you see, because I feel like there's something so pure about when a kid gets into sports as opposed to someone who's older and lived a little bit more of their life, and then that's something that just stays with you and makes you think, wow, this game is more than just a game.
Yeah. I think the game of baseball or whatever sport you choose teaches you about the more important game of life in a sportsmanlike manner that assures success, and that's really the mission of all coaches. Although we get pretty possessed with winning and losing, I think some coaches have a higher possession of winning and losing than other coaches. There's a level for each coach, but we kind of get wrapped up into that. But the thing I'm most proud of is the relationship with the players and seeing what they're doing and how they're giving back. I think everybody in this world, it's just my personal opinion, that should give back to those less fortunate.
Tony, could you touch on just a little bit about the fact of, you and I know that tomorrow's not given to us, and how we approach the coaches and the fact of you either get it or you don't get it. You and I have talked a lot about that, and could you touch on that fact that, that this is something that needs to be done today, that it's not something we can wait till tomorrow because we don't know whether tomorrow's going to be there or not?
Right. So Coach Pieps, you mentioned that, and as coaches, we're always standing up in front of our guys, telling them that tomorrow isn't promised to anybody, and it kind of, I think, goes in one ear and out the other, a young adult, because they don't know anything different, and some things have kind of been handed to them a little bit. But when you bring a cancer patient kid or a kid that's struggling with some type of illness into the locker room, and they actually experience that in front of them, your job is to enhance the quality of life for that child, but it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that one child is enhancing 35 college baseball players. I'm using baseball as an example, but that one child's enhancing 35 players' life, and there's no doubt that it did, and it does, and I wish every team can experience that.
You just went through a very emotional adoption with a young man from Butler University with the men's basketball team, and I noticed the other night after the game when they got beat that the young man was in the locker room afterwards, and some of the players were talking about the comfort that they received from the young man. So could you touch on that young guy a little bit, his struggle?
That's Sethy boy. We did that adoption right after Christmas time. You were part of that adoption too as well. But, I'll tell you what, it was special. He has his own locker in their locker room, and Seth has battled some things, and his parents are outstanding people, and but I'm reading things every night how great of a job Butler basketball is doing with that. And you're right, Peeps. It's one of those things that striking out doesn't mean as much now as it did before.
Sure.
Or losing a game or missing a shot or whatever doesn't mean as much as that kid means to that Butler basketball team.
Would you still say that if you were still coaching?
Yeah,
it might be
knows?
different.
Yeah, you got it. You're
Might be
on
a little
it.
different.
A little possessed with winning, Peeps.
Yeah, no kidding.
So when you approach a team, I don't know if you necessarily have and perhaps been rebuffed by them, but what is the thought process? Because, I just know personally, if I were working on behalf of your organization and somebody said no, I have no idea how I would process the idea that just like, this isn't me you're saying no to. This is this kid.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's Coach Pieps mentioned it earlier. Either you get it or you don't. You know, it's a win or a lose. It's right or it's wrong. There's no gray area in it. And not only do we have to take no sometimes, but some programs will say, can we wait until after the season? And this isn't something you wait until after the season. This is something you either get or you don't. And I am here to tell you, I mean, we almost think, as you're speaking, that it's an inhumane thing not to get involved in this thing. And most people, I'm going to say 8, 9 out of 10 are going to get involved because it's such a great cause, and it's hard to say no to something like that. And it's not even saying no, it's people wanting to make a difference in these child's lives.
How does a team go about getting involved? Is that something you guys reach out to them? Do they reach out to you? How does that process look?
Yeah, so that's a difficult process. There's one side of it that's difficult. It's simple for the teams to get involved. It's just a matter of us talking to teams and them signing up on our website, whether they get it or not, you know, and if they do, they sign up immediately. But probably our biggest hiccup is getting kids and their families signed up because of awareness. But there's HIPAA laws in the hospitals that we have to battle. Obviously, the hospitals just can't give out anybody's name and those type of things. So this is important to us, and you don't realize this, guys, tonight. Maybe you do, but you're changing a child's life as we're doing this right now. And I really appreciate it. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about that, to be honest with you. But so it's things like this to get the awareness out because obviously we're in this business to enhance quality of life for children. And you don't want children to have, but they're out there. Without a doubt, they're out there. And so it's all about our website is www.friendsofjaclyn.org, and people can sign up on that, and then we'll match the team with or the child with hopefully a local team, or it doesn't have to be sports. I mean, we have a child that's blind that's I think with West Point's a cappella group, and
what's their name?
Whip and Poof.
Whip and Poof.
Whip and
Yeah,
Poof.
yeah.
Doc had said that's something that he does in the morning
That's
when
right.
he wakes up.
That's right. All right, Tony, let's go back to baseball a little bit. You've been very fortunate in your career to have a couple guys, actually more than a couple, but really two that have really excelled in the major leagues. One is Craig Stammen, the other is Jerry Blevins. Craig just signed with the San Diego Padres not too long ago to a 2-year contract, and I believe Jerry's was a 3-year contract, 1-year contract. For how much?
$7 million.
Yeah, for one
Can
year.
you imagine that, playing baseball and making $7 million?
Can you kind of touch on those two guys and what you saw in them as young kids coming up? And, I know the story already. That's why I'm asking. It's kind of funny, but go ahead and enlighten us on those two guys.
Yeah, I think, first of all, you tell me what you saw in Jerry Blevins on that trip, because he might have been off the team if you weren't on that trip. So.
He was 6'7", and he threw left-handed, so I was enthralled with the fact that there was this string bean on the mound who was a walk-on, actually, at Dayton, and I just saw a little bit of something at him, but that's another story. So.
yeah, that's a long one. That could take the whole hour, but it's a great story, and we need to tell it someday.
It is a good story.
Both Ohio boys. Craig's obviously from Versailles, Ohio, about an hour north of Dayton. Jerry's from up in the Findlay, Ohio area, about 2 hours north of Dayton. Just both great stories. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Todd Linklater, our pitching coach, because both these guys are obviously pitchers, and the development that he did at that time with them. But they're both kind of just small-town country boys that were brought up the right way. They ought to thank their parents every single day, because their parents are for real, and they're both very humbled, and they both give back to their communities, and they did to the University of Dayton and to the Friends of Jaclyn. But The climb, Craig Stammen was before the 25% rule, and explain that really quick. If you offer a kid a baseball scholarship, it has to be 25% or above. That rule came in a few years back. Before that, Craig was on a $5,000 scholarship to go to a very expensive school. Nobody was recruiting him. Obviously, we were the only Division I school that was recruiting him, but Craig was the type of person that when he walked on our campus, he thought he was going to be our starting shortstop, our 3-hole hitter, and our number 1 pitcher.
Sure he was.
Yeah, and he's upset to this day that we took the bat out of his hands and just put him on the mound. Now, he's not really upset. He's making a lot of money playing baseball. But
And the last time we saw him, what was he batting for the year?
I think 500. He was 2 for 4 in the National League, I think, for the year. Had a lot of appearances on the mound. But, and he reminds us of that, doesn't he, Peeps?
Yeah, every time we talk to him.
Yeah, the great story about Craig is every time he strikes out during a Major League Baseball game, I throw him a text right away. I told you couldn't hit. And every time he gets a hit, he has to wait until after the game, but he throws me a text, and I told you I can hit, so.
Texting you from the dugout.
Yeah. And Jerry Blevins was just nobody recruited him. Just went through a walk-on tryout, was throwing, 88, 89. He's 6'4", 5", and a string bean, like you said. And he went through the walk-on tryout, and we're behind home plate, me and our pitching coach, behind a screen, radaring it. And right before he stepped on the mound, it was day 2 of a walk-on tryout. And I look at my assistant coach, and I said, why do we have walk-on tryouts? And then Jerry Blevin steps up, throws 88, 89, and never found the zone. But Coach Link looked at me and said, this is why we have walk-on tryouts. And I'm like, wait a second. He hasn't even thrown a strike yet. I know he's lighting up a radar gun. And I said, he has long hair. And he says, do me a favor, Coach, call him in your office, tell him to cut his hair tomorrow and get out to practice. And the rest is history. He's making $7 million a year with the New York Mets. And the crazy part is he's a left-handed setup guy. He threw like 60 innings last year and making $7 million. I'm in. Are you guys in on that?
Yeah,
I was about to say,
absolutely.
Terry Collins has been known as a manager who will give his relievers plenty of work. I don't know if that's going to change now that he's out the door, but certainly Jerry's been proving what he's capable of.
Yeah, he does what he's supposed to do. He gets left-handed hitters out and does his job and walks off the field and does it again tomorrow.
What about you, Mike? You ever play baseball?
Oh, yeah, big baseball. My son plays. My dad played. We're a big baseball family.
I just looking at Mike, I can tell I'd have him in the DH spot right now.
Man, back in the day when Mike was a little lighter, he was a shortstop.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of Little League fundraisers. So we're a big baseball place in the summertime, and a lot of the teams come in, and we take Gary, Mr. Brackett, out there to the Little League Diamonds, and he signs autographs. Big baseball. Big baseball area here.
You guys sponsor any Little League teams around here?
Yeah, we sponsor Edgewood Little League and Southport Little League. They were just in here today, but we go out there and support them. They come in here. It's a great relationship.
That's great. That's great.
Any other current major leaguers maybe that you have either coached or had to coach against that are out there in the bigs right now that you've
you can mention so many. We do have one other guy that was our number 1 pitcher off the 2012 Atlantic 10 championship team named Mike Hochschild, he's on the 40-man roster with the Houston Astros, and he's had such a great climb, but it's such a business that he's kind of with the wrong team, right? I feel like he needs to be traded because his numbers are unbelievable. But
that's a pretty loaded rotation to have to crack.
Right. Yeah, I can mention tons of names: Pedroia, Euclid, Stauffer. I mean, I can keep going on names that we've faced during my time at Dayton.
Was Dustin Pedroia as underrated in college as he was for his first couple of years in the bigs?
So I can tell you this: we played them at Arizona State. That's where he went to college, and he's just a little guy. And I can remember watching pregame batting practice and infield, outfield, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, who is this guy? He's short, and he's like But after the 3-game series, when you're going through lines shaking hands, I gave him a hug. I mean, he was tough out and scrappy, competitive guy, and it was unbelievable.
That's the most talented bat boy I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go back to 2012, okay? You're coming off the A10 championship. You're placed in the regional down in Texas A&M. And the very first game, you face one of the most dominating pitchers for a while, actually in baseball. Take it away there, buddy.
Yeah, so we were fortunate to win the league and the A10 tournament. And then it was the first time Dayton has ever been to a regional. And they put us at College Station, Texas, with Texas A&M, Ole Miss, TCU, and us. And so
that's a heck of a group to have to go up against.
Right.
It was tough.
Yeah, we were the 4th seed, and obviously Texas A&M was the 1 seed. And that year we actually led the country in stolen bases in all Division I baseball. I think we were 167 for 189.
Wow.
Yeah, with very average speed. We just had this base running scheme, kind of a momentum lead thing that we put in when the new bats came in and balls weren't flying over people's heads and in 6 and 4 holes as much. So we put that in, and we knew if we get on base that we can do some damage. But we happened to face Michael Waka that night. And
wow.
I think we got on base like 4 times, but we did steal 2 bases, pretty good percentages there. But yeah, we lost that game 4-1, and I think Waka then was a top 10 pick in the first round that year, and obviously he's doing well.
There's a name that's going to make my fellow Cubs fans shake a fist.
Right. There you go. Yep, the good old Cardinals.
In that time down there, talk a little bit about the atmosphere at Texas A&M. In baseball, sometimes we don't see the passion and up here that you see down there in Texas and California and so on and so forth. You've expressed time and time again that was one of the most amazing atmospheres you've ever had to coach in. So can you touch on that a little bit?
It's a really special place, and there's a lot of those type of special places in college baseball, and that's just one of them. But 10,000 people in the stands, and I'll never forget in the 7th inning, instead of the 7th inning stretch, they sang "The Eyes of Texas." The whole crowd stood up and locked arms and was waving back and forth. And to be honest with you, I hate to admit this, but I got goosebumps standing in the third base box as opposing team when they did it. But it was unbelievable. Their on-campus stadium is big. Their fan support is huge, and you can see why they're a top 10 ranked team in the program about every year.
Sure.
I did have one thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on as someone who's coached in Division I baseball. One of the things that frequently gets criticized about the NBA is the age rule, the fact that the so-called one-and-done rule. I've argued for a long time that college baseball has the best system, where you can either come out of high school or you go to college for 3 years. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right on top of it. I mean, it is through all the pro sports, it is the best system. Although I don't think it's 100% right either. I think you should go to college and get your degree, and go 4 years. Obviously, at least baseball gives it 3, but I think everybody, if they make a decision to go to college, that they should stay and walk away with a degree. That's my personal opinion. I know there's a lot of money involved in those type of things, but yeah, at least they have it figured out. I'm going to go back to Craig Stammen too. He's one of only 4% of Major League Baseball players that have their finished their degree. So one of 4%. That is finished. That's incredible.
That is an astonishingly low number because, there's the stereotype, obviously, that exists of basketball and football players are the guys who go there just for that sport. But baseball is, I think, is different in the sense that when you hear guys get interviewed, they seem like, the sort of people who have been to college for a little bit longer. Yeah.
And like I said, it's a great system that Major League Baseball and college baseball has set up, and I feel like at least they have part of it right. You know what I'm saying? And
True.
Yeah, you wish basketball, but I can tell you this, in my personal opinion, just high school kids aren't mature enough or ready to be thrown in the pool with the sharks there, and I mean the numbers speak for themselves on them making it and not making it, and so I this is just a personal opinion. I recommend that everybody goes to college, but there's too much money thrown around for that.
Well, guys, real quick, I want to introduce the crew. We have some new people joining us, it looks like. We have Derek, Mark, Mike Earnest, the GM of the Southport Stack Pickle. Great guy. You would know that if you come down here to Southport. Just ask for him by name. He'll come out and sit with you, and he might even pay for your food, is what the rumor says.
Oh, don't get that rumor started.
No.
And then we have Tony, the former baseball coach at the University of Dayton, right?
Yep.
So one thing I want to ask you, revolving around coaching, it gets away from baseball a little bit. I don't know if you saw or not, but Steve Kerr actually let his own players coach themselves last night during a game, the Golden State Warriors. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's disrespectful to the other team? Do you think it's a good way to do some team building?
I think it's how you use it. I mean, you can go to a story with Coach Pieps and his Roncalli baseball team when they won the state championship. I mean, there comes a point in time where you're teaching so much and you're holding the guys' hands in practice and structure in practice. And, I mean, you want them to learn that stuff and learn how to lead. So, I mean, we had several practices where you get ticked off at your team and you guys run practice today and you kind of get a sense of what your leadership is like and if people are looking for other people to lead for them and those type of things. So I don't know if he did it because the game was out of hand. I'm not familiar with the situation last night, but
well, they won by 46.
Yeah.
Something went
It's
right.
a good move.
I don't know if that's a good move or not, but I think I'd be faking and still coaching on that one. No.
Well,
I don't know, like during a game, but maybe practice.
They're gonna fire Kerr in the offseason, just have the players coach themselves.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, as a college coach, obviously you're going to have a lot of roster turnover just based on guys graduating, and then every once in a while someone might leave to go ahead and make the leap to the next level of baseball. But while those guys are while you have a group that is still there, how do you keep things from getting stale in terms of the lessons that you try to impart as a coach?
Yeah, so I think there's two words that go with that. I think motivation and inspiration. My personal feeling about motivation, especially when the guys get to the college level, is that you either have it or you don't. It's something that has been taught to you when you were born all the way up. So I think your job as a coach is to inspire the guys. There's a difference between inspiration and motivation, and the difference would be inspiration to me is like a bowl of water, right? And you come up with thoughts and ideas, and then your players are going to drink that water, and then you got to come up with other thoughts and ideas to fill that bowl back up. And that's, to me, that's a coach's responsibility from becoming stale. They're just different thoughts and ideas to inspire your guys.
How do you bridge the gap whenever you encounter a player who maybe isn't receptive to the coaching?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's probably the biggest challenge of coaching, I think, is getting a guy that just is defiant maybe to authority or and it's happening a lot now, I think, with youth players because of entitlement and those type of things, and they have their own thoughts and ideas, and that's a tough one to answer. I mean, I could say that maybe the last couple of years we didn't have good seasons because of what you're talking about, and I really feel that as society we've gotten a little softer too as well, where it's a lot harder to teach those core values, hard work, loyalty, hustle, intensity, sportsmanship than it was obviously when I was growing up, Coach Pieps was growing up, and but you have to change in times too, and Coach Pieps was coddling Jerry Blevins on a road trip one time, and that's not how he coached us, when we were younger. So I got upset with Coach Pieps during that game, and basically he let me know, hey, you got to change with the times here a little bit too.
And how'd that turn out?
He's making $7 million.
$7 million. So Tony and I have been through a lot of things together. It's kind of unusual to coach a kid when he was 9 years old and end up having that kid later when he was 50-some years old sleeping in your basement. But, Tony, just talk a little bit about, you and I spend a lot of times talking about life and how we deal with things. And you've been really helpful with me with parents, which you didn't have to deal a whole lot with, but it's still on that level of – and maybe you could talk a little bit just about a parent being a parent and not a coach and things like that.
Yeah. So,
Amen.
Hey, amen. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I don't know. A coach's job is to coach, a player's job is to play, and a parent's job is to be a parent. Well, a lot of parents this day and age, they want to coach and play still, and it's a tough thing. So I think the best way to describe it is, and I can use my own son for an example. Your kid is not the puzzle. He's a piece of the puzzle. And most parents, for some reason, think their kid is the puzzle, right? So if you can get across to your parents through that conversation and the way you organize and structure things, that he's just a piece of the puzzle. He's not the puzzle. I think that's the approach to take. I'll give you an example. I was watching my son Nick play baseball a few years back, and he's playing up, 9-year-old playing on a 10-year-old team, and I'm in right field, and he was playing second base and hit like 7-hole in the lineup. And this one parent comes up to me and says, "Man, I can't believe your son's not leading off or hitting 3-hole and playing shortstop." And I just, we have to as adults just kind of put our hands up because we know what's right and wrong, and we talk about players not being like we used to be. They don't work hard, they're not as disciplined, but none of us as adults are really doing anything about it. So at that moment, I just put my hands up and say, hold up, I showed up to the game today. The Thunderbirds are playing. I didn't say Nick Vittorio's playing. My son happens to be hitting 7-hole and playing second base. That's his job today. That's his piece of the puzzle, and he better do his job well today. And the parent kind of looked at me like I was crazy or something. But I don't know. One of my passions right now is bringing back core values to the youth. And instead of like sitting behind a home plate and just talking about how kids aren't like we used to be, I really think that we need to spend time as adults teaching kids work ethic, hustle, intensity, sportsmanship, loyalty, the core value things. And I think we do a terrible job as adults. I think we just talk about it and we don't actually put it in production.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I actually have a pretty good friend who's an athletic director at a high school up north a little ways. And I was having a conversation with him Sunday, and he was telling me there's a kid that goes to school there, Division I athlete through and through. But his off-field concerns, his lack of discipline, want to party, hang out with friends, this sort of thing, it's actually gotten him kicked off of the football team and the basketball team. So now this kid who could have more than likely got a college scholarship, what's he going to do now? He's going to sulk through high school and then what?
Yeah.
Well, and in this day and age of social media, if you have any of those concerns as an athlete, they're not going to stay hidden. And as we've seen, especially with the NFL draft over the last couple of years, it's going to hurt you the way teams perceive you.
Yeah. So, to me, somebody needed to get a hold of that kid at a young age, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's so. The reason I am who I am is because of my mom and dad. The reason Coach Pieps is who he is because of his mom and dad. And I just think as adults we need to do a better job of staying out of gray areas and understanding right, wrong. See, to me, like right and wrong, win, lose, ball, strike, fair, foul, there's no gray areas in those words. And I think life's the same way, but I think we really live in a gray area because we're worried about other.
Even the way that parents talk to officials at the high school level, college level, anywhere they can make their voice known to officials, it blows my mind. I've spent a lot of time at high school games this year. I've seen people throw things at officials, vulgar names. It's like they're not trying to, get one over on your kids. They're making $60 a night to do a side gig that's going to help pay their bills.
Yeah, so again, a player's job is to play, a coach's job is a coach, an umpire's or referee's job is umpire, referee, and a parent's job is to be a parent. And they're trying to referee, and play and coach. And I personally feel that the coaching profession, especially when your livelihood, like that's what you do, and that's how you feed your family, has become probably one of the toughest professions around because administrators and people have let so many people be part of the program that shouldn't be part of the program, or they have no business to be part of the program, but they open up their ears and their offices to that. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like, this is my opinion again, I know I've said that a lot, it's almost like they bring out a blueprint, administrators, and say, here's how you're supposed to coach. Here's the blueprint. Instead of saying, hey, for example, right, you've built 3 programs, you've turned 3 programs around, make sure your kids are structured and disciplined, staying out of trouble, making good grades, but go coach them up, and it's not like that anymore. It's like, here's the blueprint on exactly how you're supposed to do it.
Well, and maybe you can talk to this more than I can, and I'm sure you can, being a former college coach, but it seems like the coaching profession is one where you're almost universally always hated. Unless you're winning championships, the fan base is calling for your head, it seems like. Like, for instance, the Indianapolis Colts, they just hired Frank Reich today. The guy is probably the most loved man in Indianapolis right now, right up with, Andrew Luck and whoever you want to put up there. But next year, if he goes, 8-8, everybody in town will be calling for him to be fired, and it'll be universally hated.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you deal with something like that year in and year out?
Well, you sign up for it, first of all. I mean, that's what you sign up for, so it's part of the job and responsibility. But I am here to tell you that I have never lost a game sitting in my recliner at home. I'm like 1,000-0. Yeah. So it's pretty simple sitting in a recliner. But to me, players win games. I mean, it's not really coaches that win games. It's the players that have to make the plays and those type of things. But most people think that the coaches, that's the perception that they win or lose games, and they're not the ones doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. The coach has to set up a good culture and process and those type of things, but the players win or lose games. So I always mention, if the Reds want to win games, get better players. It's not fire the manager again, man. Front office, let's get some players in there, Right.
Speaking of Major League Baseball, one of the things that's become a big hot-button issue at the professional level is trying to implement new pace-of-play rules in order to speed up the game and sort of help baseball gain standing in an era when it seems like they're being overtaken by the NFL and the NBA. I mean, this is just coming from where I sit, but last time I checked, there's still 30 teams in baseball that are doing pretty well in terms of drawing fans. So do you think it's all that necessary?
You want me to answer this?
Well, I mean, you're touching on a touchy subject. For one thing that makes the game of baseball such a great game is there's no clock in baseball. It's a game played on dirt. Not anymore. It's all turf fields, it seems like. But the defense handles the baseball. You succeed 3 out of 10 times and you're in the Hall of Fame. But one of the things that makes baseball so special is there is no clock in baseball. And here people are trying to put a clock in. Hey, it's not broke. Don't fix it.
Does not need one.
The time in between pitches and between innings and between games have created unbelievable stories, hasn't it, through the years?
Yeah, it definitely has.
Yeah, so it's
leave the game alone.
Yeah, leave it alone. It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like there's always going to be enough fans who understand that that's how baseball is. I mean, I was raised by a father who, always quoted Field of Dreams to me, always talked about how there always has been and always will be baseball, and that's something that I've taken to heart personally, and I can't understand why. I mean, I think baseball is like the one sport where it doesn't really need a lot of modernization. I think the classic version is just fine the way it is.
So have you built it yet?
I just need to find the right cornfield
If
first.
you build it, they'll
They'll
come,
come.
right? Did you pay attention to that?
Yeah.
Your dad tell you that a few times?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the game doesn't need to be messed with. It's the great American sport. It's a great game, and you know what? If you don't want to be there, don't be there. I mean, whether it's a 9-inning game or 17-inning game. And by the way, you can leave whenever you want to.
That's right. I'm going to change the subject a little bit, Tony. Something that's near and dear to my heart, of course, is IU basketball, and you and I've been fortunate enough to attend some games and go to games and things like that. You were close friends with Archie Miller while you were at Dayton. You introduced me to Archie a few times, and I took the passion that Archie had at Dayton and was overly excited with him being. And I'd just like you to touch a little bit, since somebody that knows Archie a little bit about him and his work and what he's done in the past, just kind of talk about Archie just a little bit.
Archie's awesome. And the reason I say that is, first of all, you're not going to get, a guy that is enamored by media and show and tell and those type of things. You guys got a great coach that is in the gym with the guys, and he's a gym rat is what he is, and he's very good at teaching the game of basketball, and he's a special coach with the X's and O's and those type of things. He's tough. He's hard-nosed. You guys are going to have a lot of fun with him, and everybody needs to probably chill out a little bit this year, because you're going to – and you're starting to see it. I don't know. This is what I said the other night. I think you and I texted about this a little bit, but most teams that are in their situation right now,
in the transition year that they're in,
but that aren't having tremendous success, like the Iowas and the Minnesotas, and tell me if Archie's team is going to quit right now.
No.
And you're seeing it right. You're seeing right now in front of your eyes how special of a coach he is, because watch them play right now, where they could have cashed it in easily, right? But watch them go about things right now.
Obviously the losses to Fort Wayne and Indiana State still sting a little bit, but looking at the way that this team has started to play defense under Archie Miller just in this first season is better than any of the last 5-6 years of Tom Crean that I've watched. I mean, they're up in terms of efficiency ratings on the Ken Pomeroy scale. They're up to 55th in the nation right now, and you can really see it in the way that they've played teams like Purdue was the number 3 team in the country on an incredible winning streak when they came to Bloomington. IU at one point had a 10-point lead on them. They lost by fewer than 10 points and held the number 2 team in America in three-point shooting to under 30% from distance.
And where does that happen?
That comes from coaching.
In the gym, right?
Yes.
In practice. And boy, you guys are going to have a lot of fun with Coach Miller and in the next few years, and he's awesome. And I'm telling you, he's a grinder. He'll be grinding it out, and I think, like I said, you're witnessing that in front of your eyes right now.
Yeah, they had the press conference to hire him a few months ago, and then the next day he's at the Student Union building because his office isn't set up yet, and he is cold calling recruits specifically from the state of Indiana, because he said he was going to make recruiting in-state a priority, and he is following through on that promise. We've seen he's already got Robert Finnessy from McCutcheon High School. He's already got Demezi Anderson from South Bend Riley. He's out to guys like Keon Brooks and Trace Jackson Davis for next year. He said what he was going to do, and now he is actually doing it.
So being from New Albany, give us a scoop, man.
That's what everybody wants to know.
Come on, you got the insides. It's your hometown.
He's going to Vanderbilt.
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
the thing
Let's
that
hope
makes
not.
me so happy about Romeo, especially as someone from New Albany, is that he is the opposite of the Ball kids. His family is the opposite of LeVar Ball. They know the attention's going to come because of how talented a recruit he is, but they don't seek it out. They're not trying to use it to push some agenda. And you look at the schools that Romeo is considering, it like you stressed the importance earlier of getting your degree, And even though with his talent he'll probably be a one and done, he seems almost certainly like someone who's going to continue his education while he's in the pros. But it's Indiana, Vanderbilt, and Kansas, 3 schools he can get a very, very good degree from.
Right. Yeah. He's one and done, buddy. So have fun in that 1 year of college. So
here's the deal. I want them Vanderbilt on our schedule if it's one and done. One game, put him in Assembly Hall in a Vanderbilt uniform. Let's see what happens.
Well, here's the scoop. You sit on the baselines during a basketball game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why would you want to sit on the base, not sidelines, the baselines? I don't either.
I don't get it.
Well, the best for those interested, the best response that no one really knows for certain when he's going to announce, not even him, because, he's 18. Who among us can make a solid decision when we're 18 years old?
I bought my first car and house at 18.
Yeah.
I signed up for the military.
Okay, so Dalton can, but there's always an exception.
That was a pretty important decision for you, wasn't
Thanks,
it?
buddy.
Yeah.
But I did see an interview with his father where he talked about the fact that his family is all from Georgia. They don't get to come up here and see him play that often.
Is
And
that Georgia Tech in the picture then?
No.
Well, the McDonald's All-America game, which Romeo will be playing in, first person from New Albany High School to ever play in that
Bubba
game.
Mukes? Do you remember that name? Bubba Mukes?
Sounds familiar.
New Albany basketball. I had to guard him back
You
in
did?
1983.
How many did he go for?
His average, about
60.
32.
Yeah.
Yeah, I held him to his average, I think, 32.
Yeah, there you go.
I wonder
32.
if that was the same class of players that defeated Steve Alford when we met up with them in the
No,
state
Tony's
tournament.
older than Alford, so.
I'm 1 year younger than Steve Alford.
Oh, you
I'm sorry.
are?
Yeah, I
You
guarded
look a lot
him
older.
at a Bob Knight basketball camp. I held him to his average, too. That
42.
night. Yeah.
Well, speaking of recruits, I got to give my bi-weekly pitch of Culver Military Academy here.
Yeah, no kidding.
Their basketball team, man, I'm telling you, they're one to watch in the tournament this year.
Yeah.
They have Trey Galloway, who's already been offered by Purdue. I actually went up there to cover him 2 weeks ago, and I know the coach pretty well, who happens to be Trey Galloway's dad, Mark Galloway. And he mentioned, like, hey, Matt Painter was here last night to recruit Trey. And so the night I'm standing there, I'm getting ready to, interview the coach, Mark, and everything. And there's a guy standing next to me, and I start talking to him because I've never seen him before. I said, oh, yeah, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Creighton University. I'm here recruiting. And kid's a sophomore, 16 years old. And it's not, people look at the team and they see Trey, but they have 2 other kids who are college athletes and maybe more. There's Ethan Britton Watts, who's a junior. He already has offers from Miami of Ohio, Toledo, and a third school that I can't recall off the top of my head. And Devontae Craig, I messed that up. Deontay Craig, who has been looked at by Purdue for football. So,
Wow.
I mean, the oldest kid, they have 1 senior on the whole team,
Yeah.
a bunch of sophomores and juniors, and they're immensely talented.
Culver
So
Military, huh?
You
Yeah.
know where Culver,
Is
Indiana
is that you? Did you say you're from that area? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a Steinbrenner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that gets Peeps excited. That
It
Yankees
does.
fan over there.
Well,
Yankees.
I didn't know. I was
Yankees.
looking at their notable alumni the other day, and they have like a woodcraft camp in the summer. Dirks Bentley went to their woodcraft camp, the country
Wow.
artist.
Yeah.
And I mean, the list was just extremely long. Jim Irsay actually has a house up on the lake in Culver. So I mean, it's a great place to go. Like I said, I live in Plymouth, so it's about 10 miles away.
Scott Skiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, but maybe better baseball player
Yeah.
back in the day.
I've heard from a couple people that apparently knew Wayne Gretzky that he was a better baseball player than he was a hockey player.
I watched Scott Skiles play some baseball, and all 5'9" of them maybe should have thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
He was good.
speaking of baseball in the state of Indiana, I have a lot of friends who played baseball for New Albany. And I think it was my senior year, we ended up playing Brownsburg High School in the state tournament. And that Brownsburg team on it had Lance Lynn, who was a free agent now, most recently of the Cardinals, Drew Storen, who's with Toronto, and Tucker Barnhart, the Reds catcher, were all on that Brownsburg squad.
Right, so I'll challenge Peeps this year, right? I think they were like 38-0. Ron Colley, baby. The Rebels. this year.
We'll give it a shot, but that's a pretty high record to. And I don't think their schedule was as tough as ours is this year.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Dalton brought up a good point. Recruiting has become younger and younger and younger. I mean, with travel baseball, we've got guys coming in as freshman year and said, such and such talked to me and such talked to me. Back in the day when you first started, it was the junior year of high school that you started really recruiting a kid. Junior year was always the most important. Where now it really has become almost their sophomore year,
8th grade,
and their freshman year.
Yeah, I mean with football and basketball, it's probably middle school years now. Yeah. With baseball, it's probably freshman year, and to be honest with you, Coach Pieps, that's only a short reason why I won't miss coaching college baseball. I mean, it's very hard for me to try to understand that you're offering kid a scholarship that doesn't even have hair on his chest yet, and that's his voice hasn't changed yet,
Doesn't have a driver's license.
And it's a tough thing, and it is what it is. I think us as college coaches, I think we created a monster there, and it's only going to get younger and younger, and everybody's trying to one-up everybody and those type of things. So to me, it's not a good thing, but it is what it is, and that's the business part of it.
Do you think it's a creation of the travel baseball, kids being exposed sooner?
It definitely has that kind of impact in basketball.
You have 3rd graders committed to like the University of Ohio.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so and the thing is, they're not. I mean, the Power 5 conferences are getting, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, they're getting that. They're getting that kid, and the University of Dayton's and Atlantic 10 schools and MAC schools. We have to wait, and take up the seconds probably, and yeah.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is, for instance, like the guy from Creighton was there. It seems like a lot of these smaller schools, they come into these big athletes early, and they try to pitch their programs to them. Hey, commit with us, and it leads to a lot of these kids backing out as they grow older because they'll commit somewhere.
Sure.
And then they get an offer from a Kansas or an Indiana or somewhere like that. And I don't want to go to, community at Southport College. So I think that's a big factor into it. And
We starting a new school.
We
here,
did.
Pete?
we just did, yeah.
Can we get a baseball program?
We are going
and I
to.
will
You
run
and I.
man. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Community at Southport College. You heard it here first.
No kidding.
Well, I'll go ahead and real quick, since we've got just a little bit of time here, and steer it in a bit of a lighter direction. When it comes to baseball as a game, when you sit back and just experience it as a fan, what's the one thing that sticks out to you as something you particularly enjoy?
Yeah, so to me, baseball is a totally different breed. And, we say this all the time. I have no idea how I got involved in coaching baseball except for the love of the game. And I grew up right across the street from Southport Little League. But baseball is a game that you have to slow down, not speed up. And it's probably the only game that you have to slow the game down. The guys that do see pitches for a longer time. The ball ends up in their glove defensively better. And so that's what I love about the game. It's not something that you speed up. It's something you slow down. And to be honest with you, I know there's a lot of time in between pitches, in between innings, in between games and those type of things. But it's a chess game. It's how do you pitch a guy? How do you get a guy out? Where do we position? It's a game that it's a chess game, and a lot of people don't realize that. So that's what I love about baseball.
It's a game that reminds us what we once were and what we could be again.
There you go.
Hey Tony, why don't you throw out a little bit about the gala for Friends of Jaclyn? What we have lined up so far up there, and give a little plug for that.
Yeah, so we are one of our fundraising events is kind of a Friends of Jaclyn, take me out to the ball game, take me out to the crowd. It's going to be June 23rd at Grand Junction Brewery in Westfield, Indiana, and it's right by Grand Park. But it's just a day, June 23rd, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. of just a fun day of events going on. Peeps, your band's going to be playing that night. Hey, and I'm going to tell you guys, if you haven't been out to watch Peeps' band yet, you got to get out to watch them.
I'm in the band now.
Awesome. Cowbell.
I took my classes at Community of Southport College.
At Cowbell
Right.
classes?
Right. I have a
Awesome,
degree.
buddy. Can't wait to see it. But there'll be a lot of things going on. Obviously, we're asking for sponsorships for the event. The band's playing. Obviously, Grand Junction is going to be kind enough to give back some profits to Friends of Jaclyn. Your crew now is going to be hosting an hour or 2 hour segment, which we really, really appreciate that.
I think we should do all 12 hours.
Hey, let's do it because we're going to
not
challenge
doing
some people to
marathons.
raise some money that day, too, for the Friends of Jaclyn and the
old.
great cause. Yeah. But, and there'll be silent auction items, raffles, and those type of things going on. And that's June 23rd from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to end it there. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for
We'll
having
see
us.
you guys back February 27th. And stay tuned, and we'll announce the next guest. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Yeah, I'll
Thanks,
see you
Tony.
this summer. Looking forward to it. Thanks,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Pickle, dust 'em off, put 'em back up on the shelf. Kiss my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. I've been feeling it since 1966. Might be over now.